Welcome back, Brickmaniacs. I'm here with Lando, and we're at the designer's desk going over the November minifigure of the month, which is the 1993 US Army Mogadishu Army Ranger. Long-awaited figure. One of your first figures, if not the first 360 figure?
This is my first 360 figure, and it's been a few years actually, so now it's time to do kind of a re-up version. The old one actually aged pretty well. We'll go over that here in a second, but we only made a few hundred of that original one.
Okay.
And it's kind of just backed by it's one of my favorites, so I suggested it again. And there's still quite a few people out there that never had a chance to buy it in the first place. So I hope it's popular. So, but yeah, it's the '93 Mogadishu, inspired by the movie Black Hawk Down. That kind of era, right?
Yeah, very, very cool. So, from what you've told me, it's kind of a transitional uniform. A lot of different moving pieces going on here, kind of in the time period that it's based in. So let's dive in and go over some of the details of this uniform, this getup he's got going on.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the transitional uniform. Just right off the top, you can see 3 different camouflage patterns going on there. So on this helmet cover, you have this 6-color chocolate chip pattern. And that was kind of an earlier desert camouflage pattern that the United States developed, and it just kind of proved a little bit too costly to produce in mass quantity. So they came out with another camouflage, the Desert 3 color, which is the general uniform there. And that's actually a pretty dang good uniform, and you'll still see it out in the field occasionally to this day. Some Special Forces guys actually kind of like this stuff. And then the Ranger vest would be, that's kind of a woodland camo there. So I guess maybe they weren't deploying vests as commonly, or they didn't get the I don't even know if that vest actually came in a desert color. So
interesting.
Yeah, that's what they had available at the time, and yeah. So that's the sort of transitional uniform. You see 3 different camouflage patterns going on there.
So and just to break it down, so the uniform itself is one camo scheme. The plate carrier vest is another camo scheme, and then the helmet is even a 3rd camo scheme.
Absolutely. So that was I just thought really interesting, configuration for showing off the transition of our military at the time. So this is just a plate carrier, a Ranger vest, and then he's decked out in some gear from, I think it's late Vietnam era actually, M16 pouches on the sides there, and then on the back you have some more pouches. Here, I can take this off the plate actually. On the back you'd have some more pouches and canteen. It's older gear for the time, so but yeah, that's what they had to use. Desert boots, knee pads as well. And man, what else do we want to go over? I'm saving the head kind of for a little bit later on.
That's what I was wondering.
I don't know if you had some more questions.
So I guess, in compiling the research, obviously you had the older figure to go off of and whatnot, but did it kind of surprise you to see a unit as elite as the U.S. Army Rangers kind of using whatever camo they could get their hands on?
I mean, I think it was still pretty effective camouflage for the time. I mean, they weren't in just like necessarily the middle of the desert. It's a sort of a city-ish environment, and camouflage in a city is kind of hit or miss anyway, so I think training goes a lot further than any camouflage pattern ever would. So. Sure. Yeah. So, and camouflage just kind of looks badass, so I think maybe they like the combos. I don't know.
Yeah, lets you know you're official.
Yeah.
So, well, if that covers the details, let's. Do you want to go over the old one first, or do you want to dive into that?
Yeah, cool. We can. I do have the old one here, and so it's at a glance very, very, very similar. Some of the layouts are almost identical, but I think back then I was using a little bit thinner lines. I beefed them up a little bit. I think that it makes for. It looks a little bit more clear when you're actually holding the minifigure in your hand, a bit more kind of iconic looking, almost more of a caricature if you think about it.
Sure.
And some of the gear I've changed out, spaced some things out a bit differently, but overall they're very comparable. The original one is actually featuring a Citizen Brick helmet, really cool helmet back then, still is really cool looking. But we now have our own printing capabilities in-house, so we have our own helmet printing this time, of course on a Brick Arms MCH modern combat helmet. But yeah, there's just a few other things. The boots, I think originally I don't know if I was looking at the wrong boots or something, but this is a bit more, the newer version is a bit more accurate in terms of the color patterns. And then even overall, there's a lot of back-end detail that you wouldn't really know unless you dig into the files that I'm making. But I'm constantly working with the printers to make these more efficient to print. Working with colors, color mixing. There's a ton of color mixing that I'm doing now that I was never even doing, and that just creates for a more consistent print job. It makes for just more accurate colors. Olive is really tough to recreate, actually.
Sure.
Every era has kind of their own different olive tones, and then even there, it's just really inconsistent and different. So. Yeah, olive is it's a cool color, but it's sort of a nightmare to try and recreate at times. So, interesting, just more random things you wouldn't be thinking about necessarily at a glance. But then, yeah, obviously back then we were just primarily sticking to stock Lego faces, and well, I think the classic smiley face is still one of my favorite faces of all time.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
Yeah, totally. But sometimes when you're using a certain minifigure face from a line of sets or whatever, that supply is maybe that's not in print anymore, so it prevents you from doing restocks in the future. And it's fun making your own face artwork. So,
yeah, I bet.
Which is maybe a good transition into the
sure,
head
yeah,
on this minifigure.
Let's jump into it. Yeah, was that the thing? So when you got the go-ahead that you knew you were bringing back the Army Ranger, was that the most exciting thing that you wanted to update on?
Yeah, I guess we've done it on a few previous figures. I think the first one was the Canadian D-Day infantry.
Yep.
And that was the first one to feature that helmet strap. And then again on the Russian sapper.
Had the side, and then the buzz cut.
Yeah, little buzz cut. And I kind of knew in the back of my head that I wanted to do some sort of goggle artwork that would go all the way around the head. So this is actually finally got a chance to do that. So the goggles actually go all the way around the head, which is really cool.
They're not just floating lenses.
No. And this is one continuous print. This isn't. We're not. Yeah, it actually took quite a bit to set this up in our machines. So we're able to put this down, print this in one pass, and as the head is rotating in our printers. So it's actually a really involved process.
Was there a lot of troubleshooting?
Oh, totally. Always.
Sure.
Troubleshooting and just you need a really skilled crew to pull that kind of stuff off. So there is a subtle stubble pattern, really close to the head there, and then yeah, goggle strap goes all the way around, and the helmet chin strap goes right at the side of the head, which is always. I think I had done some chin straps on other earlier figures where it's just on the front, and I always thought that looks a little like too close, like scrunched up against the head. So it's nice to be able to get that up against the side. And so that's featuring some 90s era chin strap and goggles. I mean, more modern goggles are probably more ballistic. I think these would. I don't think these offered ballistic protection. And then that chin strap is just the single strap, whereas modern ones have since upgraded to a 2-point harness.
Split. Yeah, right.
So these are just older 90s configurations, but again, iconic of that era. And I think it kind of goes well with that. It's just a cool looking figure in terms of the combinations. You have that kind of olive gear for the goggles and the helmet strap, which makes it look kind of sweet with that vest. So.
Well, and I know we covered it a little bit in a sit rep, but I think one of the coolest things about this is obviously this is from the 1993 Battle of Mogadishu, but at the same time, this Army Ranger loadout, I mean, it can go in a ton of, from Desert Storm all the way to I mean, even modern day like this.
There's elements of this that you'd still see out modern. The boots are fairly similar. I mean, black knee pads. Who knows? This would this would mix kind of well with private military kind of stuff.
Cool.
So they wear whatever gear they kind of want, but this is, I just thought of this Battle of Mogadishu era. I thought this was a really iconic figure, so I was glad that I got a chance to make it for the first time and have a nice little reissue here where there's some updates to it, and we can bring it to brand new customers that didn't know about us a couple years back. So.
Yeah, right. Very, very cool. So once again, this is the November minifigure of the month. It will be available through the entire month of November, and then will be retired. So make sure to get your hands on it during this month as well. We're going to print as many of them as we can. Obviously, like Landon was saying, it's a involved process, but we'll do what we can to make sure that it's all available. So thank you very much for going over this. Anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah. No, again, it's available all month, and then once this month is over, we won't be producing it anymore, and we'll be selling the remainder. But once those are gone, those are gone. So.
All right. Very, very cool. Well, thank you for joining me, and remember the 1993 US Army Ranger from the Battle of Mogadishu. So thanks for watching.